in your various homes, do you think the nursing training allowances and teacher training allowances should be cancelled? That is the call by Kwaku Asante. And if we look at how many schools we can build with the money we're giving some of our colleagues, maybe we should have a rethink into that. We'll try and see if our guests can share some thoughts on that. But once again, welcome to Prime Morning. My name is Razak Musbao, of course, not your regular face on the show, but we're here to do the job for God and country. Well, it's time for the newspaper review or news flash, and we're going to take a look at what the newspapers have been reporting. We've got the Daily Graphic here, we've got the Publisher here, and a few other papers here. But even before I get into all of that, let me just also mention that I'm not going to be doing this alone. I've got a few of my senior brothers in studio with me. And in studio, I've got Richard Suma, who is lead member of Movement for Change. Richard, good morning. Welcome. I hope you had a good rest.
Yes.
Wonderful. You look like you had a good rest. You look like you had a good rest. You do. You do. I've also got the man in power, the man in government.
Oh, yes, the big man.
Yeah.
Oh, am I?
You are the man in government, aren't you? You are the man in government. Prince Derek. After 8 years in opposition, you've enjoyed 6 months in governance. How does that feel, though? Good morning, by the way.
Good morning. I think Ghanaians have enjoyed 6 months, 7 months in government. Not me necessarily. I think that this current administration is doing very well, and the numbers show. But even more, people feel it in their pockets. You see it at the pumps, and it can only get better. I like the previous.
Kwaku Asante on the national allowances thing.
And I think a bite on that won't be a bad idea. That has been the policy of the NDC. In fact, I think he's gone back in time. If you recall, in 2016, and ran up to the elections that the NDC lost, the refrain was a policy shift towards removing or scrapping the
allowances
and teacher training allowances in favor of student loans, so that these institutions were upgraded to tertiary status so they can benefit from the student loan. And I think he's repeating exactly what the NDC wanted to do, which it will do. But then again, I mean, you don't rush these things. So maybe a whooping amount of money, in excess of 683, I think, has been allocated this year, 203 to teacher training and about 480 to the nursing trainees. Over time, I'm sure you'll see that the government will take the steps to move.
That's going to be probably some political suicide if you start with paying them and then you have to drift to, okay, let's change it, go and take a loan. I think
there was there was a gap in communication, and I think the media didn't help us at all there.
But you started paying it.
No, I know. I'm saying that governance is, not a straightforward event. Sometimes you have to carry the people along, and I think this administration is doing quite well. A lot of stakeholder, engagement. You realize that the first few months were, towards education, economy, stakeholder engagement, and more are going to happen.
So you think we are going to get to the phase where government will properly engage the students and they'll come to understand that, yes, maybe let's...
With the help of the media, and I want to trust that you have started and you will continue. I mean, when the backlash comes, actually from the NPP, I expect that, the Movement for Change are very reasonable people who would also, as it were,
and they will support it.
Yeah, but you, especially the media, the fourth, estate, must play your role in ensuring that these bold steps, once taken, are not easily reversed. I mean, you can expect that people would, who don't understand, or people who want to play mischief, would do same. The idea is that, I mean, these amounts are to cushion these people, and also encourage more people to go into these two key sectors of education and health. You realize that the John Mahama administration did a lot of work in the education and health sector, building more hospitals, building more schools. The idea was to ensure that once you finish school, you will get employment. All right, ready employment. Currently, the foreign minister is trying very hard and is actually expanding the frontiers of trying to get us into a position where we can even export our nurses and other professionals. This is going to make sure that there's no, one left behind. If you get to be given money in terms of the loans, and people are, a lot of people don't like collecting loans because they are afraid that they cannot pay. Guarantors are scared for the same reason. This time around, if you have employment and it is being gradually removed from your salary, or even not necessarily removed, but over time it's worked out such that it becomes like a revolving fund. More people can be, put in these, because that is opposed to the current situation of having to pay these huge amounts, which are restrictive in terms of the numbers that can be absorbed, and therefore the numbers that can be recruited. I think that we'll move away.
Yeah, well, let's get into the papers now, and I've got the Daily Graphic here on the front page. You see the Accountant General who is baring his teeth. It says study leave abusers face sack. Wow, interesting. And also still on the Daily Graphic, you see ADB records some 230 million in profit in 6 months. Then the Minorities Press briefing yesterday is also captured in the Daily Graphic front page, where they say that data in mid-year budget review misleading. That's the claim from the minority. I will get into it on our show today. Then you have the TBSC business end, but also the UGMC to roll out hair transplant this year. That's interesting news, isn't it? Really good news.
Somebody's happy already. Somebody's happy.
I knew you were going to point to him. I knew you were going to point to him, but that's something. And interestingly, it's called hair forestation. Hair forestation. Borrowing the word from afforestation there. So let's see how that works out. But on the back page, you also see the IGP directing regional commands to engage communities to address simmering tension in Boko. Of course, in recent days, the issues in Boko have resurfaced, and we are all exploring ways to try and calm tempers in that part of our country. Oh, great. So, and also I have the Accra Times here, which says on the front page, says decision to drop Unibank case. AG gives further and better particulars. We'll try and get into that also on the show. Then the road to growth. Ghana's economy shows signs of recovery. That's the finance minister. And it says NPP disagrees with mid-year budget review, also on the front page of the Accra Times. And they highlight economic challenges. Then also you see NPA warns against dangerous practice. That's placing stones on LPG regulator. Interesting. Then Zaneto calls on Asante-Hene. She paid a visit to the Asante-Hene, and that's also captured there. The Ghana's 24-hour economy program, Chinese to explore opportunities, and SNIT deepens digital drive to boost employer compliance and pension sustainability. Well, Prince, what have you got? Which papers have you got? You've got the Chronicle, and what's captured in the front page?
Well, I was given the Chronicle. I would have preferred the Mail, the Daily Mail. I would have preferred the Daily Mail.
Okay.
But I have the Chronicle with me. It says, I'm the most viable candidate to lead NPP. And that's Kwabena Ajay Ejipon at the official announcement of his intention to be the NPP flag bearer. Then we have Brian Champon files emergency motion in Parliament to confront national security crisis in Baku after failing as Minister of State.
Interesting. Well, Richard, what have you also got? You've got the publisher, right?
Yes, I have the publisher here, which says NPP 2028 election. Baumia adheres to pay 600,000 Adoku 4 chairs vetting committee. Minority blast finance minister over budget claims. Court fines Womavo 3,000 in Kenda Pass case. So basically, this is what the newspapers capture on the headline.
So basically, that's what the newspapers have captured there. But I wanted to just get into the steady leave abusers thing, because this is a very serious issue. It's a very serious issue, and to a very large extent is affecting productivity at our workplace. Let me just give you an excerpt of what the Accountant General is saying, that employees who are granted steady leave will pay steady leave with pay and refuse to return within the stipulated time will have their appointment terminated. The Controller and Accountant General warned the move, he said, formed part of a broader plans to get rid of ghost names on the government payroll. It says, on quote, future termination will apply to those who are going on steady leave with pay. If you have steady leave with pay for 3 years, your future termination date is not when you will be 60 years. It will be after your steady leave, so that exactly after the 3 years, automatically your salary will stop. So that's a very profound one, and hopefully we can address that. Well, one of the issues that have also been captured in the newspapers has to do with the Minorities press briefing yesterday, reacting to the finance minister's budget statement on Thursday. Fundamentally, they are saying there are a few things in the data that the finance minister presented to Parliament, which they believe are misleading. But then you listen to them extensively and you get a sense that they are simply asking the finance minister to give them credit also for the gains that we have seen in the economy. Interesting. They say that things like the debt, the DDP contributed to the especially Fitch upgrade, and they also make a few reference to reserves which they left, which has contributed to the economy rebounding, and a few other things that they believe they did, which has helped to position the economy on the trajectory that we are in now. Great, but let's hear from the former finance minister, Dr. Amin, who, you can say, led that press conference yesterday. He's the ranking on the finance committee, and that's what he had to say.
Exchange rate situation. The minister indicated that, and we all heard it. He said, "Sidinu Apiki." That's what he said, isn't it? The developments in the foreign exchange market under this administration are deeply troubling. We are witnessing persistent arbitrage between the interbank market and the Forex Bureau, alongside a growing scarcity of foreign exchange. Perhaps the minister should know that, yes, Sidinu Apiki, but Abochi get the dollar, as my brother Honorable Adongo once said. And the arbitrage we are seeing is quite wide. Whilst the minister is talking about interbank rate of 10 cedis to a dollar, the Abochi is selling it at over 13 cedis to a dollar. And on top of that, the banks don't have Forex to give to their clients. We have heard many people complaining about how long it takes, the documents they have to present, to be sent to the Bank of Ghana for clearance before they get Forex from their own accounts, their own Forex accounts. They cannot get transfers that they have to make to people they buy goods from abroad. They are not able to do that. They are incurring losses as a result of that. Ladies and gentlemen, the shortage of dollars in the bank has been so pronounced that importers have gone public to express their frustration about the situation. It is evident that the Bank of Ghana has been intervening significantly in the Forex market through auctions, bilateral sales, and using other tools, despite the Bank of Ghana governor denying such intervention were happening. On the exchange rate situation, the minister indicated that, and we all heard it. He said, "Sidinu Apiki." That's what he said, isn't it? The developments in the foreign exchange market under this administration are deeply troubling. We are witnessing persistent arbitrage.
Yeah, so that's the former finance minister. He says that, well, the finance minister says, Sidinu Apiki, yet he claims that it's Abochi who have the Forex. And the Ghanaian people are saying, according to him, do not have access to the dollars. Well, let me start with you, Prince. Okay, great. Well, I understand Winston Amwa, the head of Joy Business, is on Zoom. So before I come to you, Winston Taki, I beg your pardon, Winston Taki, my colleague with the Joy's Business Desk is on Zoom. Let me get to him, then I'll come to you, gentlemen in the studio. Winston, good to have you this morning. I mean, I'm sure you followed closely the minorities press conference yesterday. What exactly is their concern? What problem do they have with the mid-year budget statement that the finance minister presented on Thursday?
For us, thank you very much, Musba. It's good to join the conversation, and it's important for us to speak to the numbers. And for us, we try to put perspective to every narration, especially when it comes to political discourse. And yesterday, we had a minority speak about the numbers and tease basically the government in power about who really owns the dollar and where the dollar has been. But data has shown consistently from January to now about 40.26% in terms of appreciation of the Ghana cedi. And that has played a significant role in the outlook of where the debt structure has been. If you look at Ghana's current public debt, as at 2025 January, we were standing at $49.1 billion. And if you look at from the management of the debt from January to June 2025, our debt outlook stood at $59.4 billion Ghana cedis. And if you look at it from the perspective of how the cedi has performed, it appears that Ghana's public debt, which fell from 156.6 billion between March and June 2025 to basically 613 billion in June 2025. This is approximately about 43.8% of the national gross domestic product. But if you look at it, so the interesting aspect has to do with when the cedi appreciation began to culminate, it has led to a gross reduction in the nature of our debt. As of now, our standard debt, which stood at $29.1 billion in June 2025, is now higher by 28.5 billion as of March 2025. So there's been significant reduction because of the cases of performance of the cedi.
So fundamentally, the cedi has reduced. That's the point, because if you look at where the government picked the cedi form, 14.69, understand. And we know the cedi rose as high as 15, 16 cedis as way back in 2022, thereabout. Now we're doing some 10.3, thereabout. So there's been reduction in the cedi. And that reduction in the cedi has resulted in a reduction in our debts, overall debts.
Absolutely.
And that's clearly is good news, isn't it?
That's a very good news for Ghana. But then you can see significant improvements from the debt restructuring that happened since 2004, and that has culminated based on how we've been able to meet our debt prepayment timelines. And the last repayment review by the Fitch gave us negative B ratings, and that was from our default rating, and this gives a very positive outlook to the international community, telling us that we have a proper debt management structure. And very soon, basically, Ghana has about $111 billion in terms of debt repayment for the rest of the year. And we're looking to how government will find the needed capital to refinance this debt. So all looks good for now, but there's still risks as to whether the government can manage this as against maintaining strong growth outlook.
Interesting. It's interesting you mentioned the Fitch upgrade there, B-minus upgrade, and that's where the minority also had concerns, because in the finance minister's presentation to Parliament, he cited that as part of the gains they've made. The minority says, well, it's not fair if you say it's exclusively your efforts and that the debt restructuring contributed to that. When you look closely at the Fitch reasons they gave for the upgrade, can you give us a sense of what informed that upgrade? Is it more of a collective effort between this government and the previous government, or exclusively the previous government, or exclusively this current government?
Both the NPP and the NDC must understand that government is continuum, and the fact that one started and one is continuing, the outlook for the international community, they don't mind who is in power or not. They look at how the nation is looking at, and that is the ultimate objective. And if you look at where we started, first of all, what led to the restructuring, there has been some significant disbenefit of the restructuring. We saw individual pension bond holders hitting the street, but the ultimate goal is Ghana managing the debt. And if you look at where we've got into as a nation, began from the previous government. They did it astronomically because of the challenging conversation from the former finance minister, then Ken Ofori-Atta, before Dr. Amin Adam, and you could tell that the debt restructuring was a very painful happening, because we had to go to the IMF. It was one of the conditions we had to fulfill, and the government has consistently, previous government was able to manage it to a point. So the current government, knowing what is happening, they've also handled it effectively. But the key challenge will be next year, 2026, the IMF program will be ending. How will government be able to handle it subsequently? Will it still be under a strong fiscal consolidation program? Will we be able to manage expenditure outlook? Will we just get to our normal expenditure ways? Already government has been saying, although the narrative was that they weren't spending, therefore that was one of the reasons why the city was not gaining. They cited statutory payment that they applied to, payment to doctors, payment to key contractors and all those things. Nonetheless, the risks still will be reflected in the third quarter of the year, which we'll be looking forward to.
Well, Winston, thank you very much. And of course, Winston will also later be on our bulletins across our platforms. Thank you very much. Well, let me come back to Prince and to Richard now. So talking about the economy, the mid-year budget statement. Prince, did you follow the minorities press conference yesterday? And I'm curious, what did you make of it?
Oh, unfortunately, I boycotted it.
Like they boycotted the budget, right?
Yes, I'm surprised that they are eager to talk about the budget and yet did not want to sit in when it was being read. But obviously, I mean, they went into their rooms and they paid attention, save that they're coming out with propaganda. If you look at what the Fitch said about the reasons, or the reasons they cited the Eurobond restructuring, fiscal consolidation, and improvement in the macroeconomic conditions in the country. I think that, by and large, I mean, whoever takes credit for me doesn't really matter. I think that the NPP and the NDC administrations have all contributed to the situation we find ourselves in, positive and negative. The NDC has done the positives, the NPP did the negatives. So they contributed negatively to what we have today. Maybe it would have been an A, but for the mismanagement by Appiah, Addison, and Ken Fuyata. So that is their contribution. So we must acknowledge them for having contributed. So if they say they have contributed, yes, they have.
So their contribution, according to you, is the management of the economy.
Mismanagement.
The mismanagement of the economy.
Yes.
According to the
which all Ghanaians, which all Ghanaians, including the NPP themselves, are.
Yeah, but then Fitch also referenced the debt restructuring, as part of the reasons for the upgrade, that it was, the impact of it, of that as part of the reasons. And you do admit that they started the process and they came under heavy criticism for that. And they're saying that if you're reaping the benefits of it in the upgrade, at least recognize that.
Yeah, but, and I want to quote, I'm not an economist, but I want to quote significantly what the former, he's now on the board of the Bank of Ghana.
Professor Bokwin?
Adongo.
Gachi?
Adongo.
Okay, Adongo.
And significantly what Felix Fosu-Kwakye said on the floor of Parliament, which is in sync with what the finance minister did say during his delivery. Some of the targets that they were looking at were going to be even in 9 years, which has been achieved over the short term. And I think that if they had made their projections for 9 years, and yet the current situation does not bear that 9-year thing, how do they take credit for the kind of projections they made and the reality? Are you getting me? Now, significantly, things have changed, since they left power. And my good friend, taking a swipe at Adongo for the Abochi's got $1. This time around, it's not Abochi's got $1. You can realize that the Bank of Ghana is taking concrete steps to ensure that we use cedis, not dollars in Ghana. And the laws do exist. Now they're going to be enforced. Hitherto, it wasn't being enforced.
Yeah.
They, on the contrary, have the dollars. It's not Abuchi who has the dollars. It's the NPP looters who have the dollars. And Oral is going to go get it. So the dollars will not be with them, and they will not be handing it to Abuchi. They'll be handing it to the Attorney General very soon. And I'm sure when prosecutions start, we will get all the dollars back in our coffers. But then also, I don't think that the gold board can be left out of the equation. Significant gains have been made relative to the stability of the city or the strengthening of the city against the dollar through the gold board's activities. If you look at that versus what they tried to do with that fake gold for oil, would turn out to actually be cash for oil, because then they were trying to do not just have some in the reserves, which that one can be credited, but they were actually doing, they had a second leg of it, they called the cash for gold or something. They had two legs of it.
That was a gold for oil.
No, they had gold for oil, and then they had gold for reserves. The reserves can be actually seen, because then it is there. But then the oil part, they didn't use the gold to trade directly for oil. They actually bought the oil in cash.
The finance minister mentioned that.
That is true.
He went to He went in there, he realized that it was cash they were using to pay for
Exactly. So they were actually deceiving Ghanaians. I mean, it's propaganda as usual for NPP. But now we are seeing a new reality. The Gold Board is ensuring that it does not allow, in their case, they were actually buying Galamsey gold. I mean, yes.
But you can't, how can you prove that they were buying Galamsey gold?
What was Wuntumi doing out there? Why was the president protecting Wuntumi and others? Why were they giving all those licenses out? Where was those gold going? They are asking where the gold is going. Gold Board, on the other hand, is making sure that the smuggling doesn't happen, that we can trace our gold, and the few that pass through the genuine system have true value.
Oh, great. Let me bring, Richard in now. Richard, then understand, Dennis is also on Zoom. Dennis is on Zoom. Dennis Appiah Labi, ample for the NPP rep. Is also Dennis, I'll come to you very shortly. And but let me hear from you on this matter. Movement for change.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say good morning to the entire production team of Joy Prime this morning. And I am wearing black because over the weekend we all knew what happened. We lost a legend, Daddy Lumba, and Alan Chiramantin still remains a political colossus in this country.
Is he around though?
Yeah, he's around, and he'll be paying a solemn visit to the family of Daddy Lumba and that of Adekuka this morning, or this afternoon rather. So we are all gearing up to go support him do that.
Okay.
Then also to touch on the issue regarding the payment of allowances to nurses training and the teachers training. It is absolutely outlandish to still be paying these kinds of money in this day and age, trying to, to entice people to go into the field of studying nursing and becoming a teacher in this country. Therefore, we need to put an extreme priority in paying them allowances for them to go and study. It is absolutely out of order in this day and age. If not for political convenience, like your presenter said, this should have been scrapped. President Mahama should have stood on his grounds prior to his election in 2024 to still remain optimistic that we don't have to pay people to study becoming nurses and teachers in this country. The student loan is there. Whoever wants to apply for a loan to continue your education, you go for it and study and progress and make life for yourself.
Great.
But to be depending on the country to be paying you all this kind of stipend in order for you to study, it is neither here nor there in the
great.
So let's gang up and stop it immediately.
Yeah, great. But in terms of the Fitch upgrade and the Minority Press Conference, did you make any meaning from all that they said yesterday? Do you side with them?
No, it's politics. NPP is doing complete politics because, you see, they are becoming very irrelevant in the political space. So they are trying to latch on to any other thing that is in the public domain to make it look like we did something extraordinary, therefore we should be credited for it. What triggered the debt restructuring in the first place? What triggered it? Abysmal performance, reckless expenditures with impunity, lack of scale of preference. They were doing things that was in their ultimate interest. Therefore, you reduce the entire nation to a junk status. You were banished from the capital market from borrowing. And then at the end of the day, you were going into an IMF program under a dialysis. Okay, you were completely on a dialysis. The economy was on dialysis, on total collapse. And then when you were going to IMF, they gave you a condition that there are some accruing interest that are supposed to be paid to pensioners and bondholders, and therefore do a restructuring, because that will also hurt you bad. If you are not able to restructure your debt well, you will not be able to pay us, okay? So IMF said that before we give you that money, you have to go back into your books and reorganize yourself. So in the first place, you created a mess. So if today a new government has taken over because of their own austerity measures, fiscal discipline, they are trying to put in some mechanism to control the way we frivolously spend on unnecessary things. Therefore, foreign rating agencies are looking at the fact that there is some level of discipline in government expenditure, and there is an amount of discipline as to how volatile our CD was against the dollar. It has been relatively stabilized. And why is it stabilized? Because some prudent mechanisms have been put in place that stabilized it. It didn't stabilize because of some magic. So NPP should be giving this country a break.
But they say Fitch stated in their arguments for the upgrade. The part of it was the restructuring.
That is why I'm saying that
13.1 billion, and they say some 2.5 billion debt relief has been given the country, and that contributed to.
That is why I'm saying that all.
And the NPP say they started this process.
Sustainability is the word. Okay, what economy did they inherit from the erstwhile Mahama administration? Was it a junk status economy? Was it? It wasn't. So it's supposed to be sustained. It was sustained. We wouldn't have gotten to that stage where we need to do a debt restructuring. A debt restructuring simply means that your economy is not doing well. So if as a result of the debt restructuring, it has triggered a performance rating upgrade, why should we credit you that?
So they should not take credit.
You put me in the ditch. Okay? And when I have to get out of the ditch, you need to throw me some sandbags. For which reason I'll stand on it, gravitate towards the top. And upon getting to the top, you tell me that it is because you threw me sandbag, that's why I got to the top.
In the first place, why did you put me in the ditch?
Why did you put me there? Were you not the one who created the slippery environment for me to fall into that ditch?
Great. Let me ask Dennis that question now. Dennis, Dennis, are you there? Good morning. I hope you're doing well.
You should have been in the studio. Why is it not there?
That is actually why you're in the studio. Hello, Dennis, can you hear me? I'm not hearing Dennis here.
I'm here with you.
Great. Good to have you. I mean, you've heard your colleagues. Your side are saying that you want to take some credit for the upgrade that Fitch has given Ghana. The finance minister is taking credit for that on behalf of government, but you say you contributed to that. But the big question is, you're referencing this debt restructuring you engaged in, and they're asking you, we didn't need to do that in the first place. You caused it. So if you caused a problem and you found a way to, try and assuage the pains that the people are going through, you shouldn't come and be asking for credit.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to send my kindest regards to the team in the studio. Richard, as usual, is playing the 5 and 6. Now he's more than Sergio Ramos. Playing a very good defense job. I mean, I would understand my brother from the NDC. He is actually benefiting from the 78 million cedis budget. So he has a responsibility to hold a very good defense line, more than what Ukraine is doing. So I understand. First of all, I want us to, I share my condolences with the Lumbest family. And then I share my deepest condolences with the people dying in Boko. It's a serious situation going out there in Boko. The country's security is in an abysmal situation. It is spreading more than we can even imagine. As it stands now, the people in Ashanti region are also reeling from some of the impact of what is happening in Boko. Unfortunately, the president played politics with Boko, so it is making it a difficult one to go about it. Never should we get to the situation where, for the sake of power, a politician desperately plays with such a crisis.
Well, but interesting. So great.
Deepest condolences
to the people in Boko. But let's get to this Fitch upgrade concern.
I think that I wanted to at least share the condolences on your behalf, since I'm sure you probably forgot or you did it on another segment.
Yeah, we did.
For the situation in Boko, because it is becoming...
Yeah, we did it yesterday. We spent extensive time on it yesterday. But,
yes, and I want to, once I have the opportunity, I want to share with the people of this country who are suffering under insecurity under this government.
Great.
I also want us to, and now we will take our time and systematically disambiguate ourselves, break down some of the propagandist position taken by our brothers in the studio. And I'm not surprised because the finance minister walked into parliament under the record of the Hansard to peddle falsehood, push propaganda, and still behave as though he's campaigning on the streets of Accra. Hopefully, nothing will be starting. But the Cocoa Board of Ghana is still unable to announce a family price or a price. Now, what Fitch is saying, not me saying, if you read Fitch documents, the document from Fitch is saying that the main argument for renewing Ghana's grading from the junk status, the RD, to a B minus, is that Ghana has significantly managed its debt stock very well, citing the situation of the debt restructuring. Now, this is where every credible and honest person will have an issue with the NDC and the Minister for Finance. And I'll tell you why. If you bastardize the NPP for point A, it is hypocritical, it is dishonest, it is propagandist to seek to want to benefit from the same thing you deal or you bastardize the NPP with. You claim your dad is a ritualist whose money is bad, but you drive his car to town to collect funds. That is outright hypocrisy. Now, moving away from that to look at the issues, I have already mentioned that it is Fitch that is crediting the debt restructuring. It is not us, the NPP. We have always said that the debt restructuring is not something we are enthused about. It is not something we are happy about. And so it is a painstaking measure we had to go through. But the NDC, led by the same finance minister, in opposition and in power, insulted, attacked the NPP for it. Now you flip-flop and come and want to take glory from the same thing. That is the problem here. While doing that, you carry yourself and peddle a lot of falsehood. One of these falsehoods he carries around is by saying that it is the primary surplus we are enjoying is unprecedented, or it's the first time we are enjoying primary surplus. That is a lie. The finance minister lied. 2017, 2018, 2019, this country enjoyed primary balance surplus. Now, my brother in the studio talks about oral. Let's ask him, is it the Chimpe oral, the oral that has turned its head upside down, where there are lies by the Attorney General to tell Ghanaians that he has retrieved 60% from the Unibank deal, when in fact he has received just 10%. Which oral is he talking about?
And Dennis, just to touch on that. Dennis,
on the issue of the budget.
Dennis, if you can hear me. Dennis, if you can hear me, if Dennis can hear me, I just want to draw your attention to this. Dennis, if you can hear me, I want to draw your attention to this. You rightly make reference to the debt restructuring, which Fitch referenced as part of the reasons for the upgrade. But they also mentioned that part of the reason for the upgrade is inflation that has declined. And we've seen inflation decline in recent time. They also make reference to, what do you call it, how our forex has improved. And all of these things, if you compare them to what you handed over to them, it has improved. So you do admit that as much as the DDP contributed to it, which Fitch, acknowledged, will you admit that the other reasons they gave, like inflation declining, our forex improving, has also contributed to the upgrade? So maybe it's not entirely...
What is the contention here? The contention here is the NDC's inability to admit that the main foundation for fixed grading, the main foundation, is the debt restructuring that they bastardized the NPP for.
But Fitch,
the entire contention. Hold on.
But Fitch also highlights the improvements in our inflation.
No problem.
So do you concede? Will you give them the credit for that?
Hold on. Why are you in the studio and why am I here? The contention here is the debt restructuring. If you talk about the dollar, I went to the Forest Bureau to get dollar, got a different rate, totally different. And you see the gap between the dollar rate on the market as against what the Bank of Ghana is publicizing. It's very, very serious and you should be concerned. Now, the minister lies again on the floor of parliament to tell Ghanaians that he took over a dollar CD rate of 17 cedis to 1 CD. That is outright propaganda. Because according to the same Bank of Ghana, as in January, before handing over, dollar was 14 cedis, 60 pesos. And you even in the studio mentioned it. So he sits in the studio with you, the NBC man sits in the studio with you and talks about Gold Board as though knowing very well, talks about traceability of Gold Board, when Gold Board himself has admitted that it is struggling with traceability. And we all know out of the $5 billion worth of dollars of gold bought by the Gold Board, majority comes from Galamsey sites.
Well, great, but let me just bring in, Dennis, just hold on for me. Dennis, please hold on for me. I'll come back to you briefly. Let me just touch base with, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you briefly. Let me just touch base with, all right, great. Dennis, just land, then I'll just touch base with our guest.
According to Erastus and your own Joy Multimedia team, Galamsey is on the ascendancy, and it is getting worse by the day, thereby affecting the proceeds bought by Gold Board, enabling Galamsey. Gold Board has become an enabling system to promote Galamsey, all a bit financing and printing of money by the Bank of Ghana.
But to be fair to Erastus, I haven't seen Erastus say that anywhere.
I was in the studio with Richard Suma when Erastus said this. Ask Richard, ask him.
Because I did see there was a flyer that went round that Erastus said that, and he posted on his Facebook page that he hasn't said that. And
I was in the studio when Erastus said that Galamsey is on the ascendancy, which Richard, ask Richard. Richard is my witness. Ask Richard. So it is neither here nor there to call the cat black and still say that the cat is evil, but I want to pet the cat.
Great. Dennis, let me go to Daniel Enim Prempe, who's a lawyer and also an economist. And I'm sure you've been following this conversation, the back and forth from the political actors. You're an economist. Tell me, though, does the government have some credit for the upgrade, and should some credit be given the previous government for the upgrade also?
Right. Thank you very much. You know, we need to be able to answer this question. First of all, we need to understand what governance is in a very simplistic manner. I would describe governance as a chain in a linear equation. So what it means is that one starts and ends at a point, and another person continues with. Now, if you take economic policy, okay, if an economic policy is implemented, it takes time for it to be able to yield a certain level of results, okay? And if one government starts something and another government takes over and is able to probably work with it, and there is a certain result, it will only be fair, I mean, from pure economic perspective, to recognize the effort of maybe the previous government and then this one. But now to answer you, so this ought to be understood. But we understand the politics of the day, of course. Political artists will always find a way of, underplaying one another, and another one will also try to take credit for whatever is happening. I must admit that, yes, in terms of the debt restructuring mechanism, it was started under the Nanado's administration, okay? And then even if you look at the data put out by the Honorable Finance Minister, it seems to suggest that at the time they started the restructuring mechanism, okay, we have seen a certain level of, improvement in the macroeconomic fundamentals. But now, within the 6 months period, when President Mahama took over the leadership, probably because of how they went about the management of the economy and a certain level of confidence and trust, that people perceived that he brought to the fore, it actually led to a significant improvement in the macroeconomic fundamentals. So in short, the President Mahama's government followed suit the debt restructuring mechanism. And I must also admit that we have seen a certain level of fiscal discipline from the government in terms of the management of the economy, the appreciation of the local CD, of the currency, and how it has fared so far. And of course, the politicians will also understand that since President Mahama took over, if things have gone worse, same will criticize. And now that things are improving, they also want to take the political capital of same. So all this kind of debate, I mean, it's part of the political system. But from pure economic perspective, my view from pure professional perspective is that whatever is happening to this government, it is as a result of certain policies that were put in place and they are now yielding results. But I must equally admit that this government has done so much work in terms of how they have conducted the business of the nation so far.
Great.
And then credit also must.
Credit must.
Your question in a very simplistic manner. I think it is a shared glory that ought to be given to all the leadership. But this government has fared very well so far, so good.
But I want you to also help us appreciate this, especially for our viewers in the various homes. While the political actors are fighting for credit, what does this mean for the ordinary Ghanaian? When we hear that there is an upgrade, a B- upgrade of our economy, what does this mean for the ordinary Ghanaian, for the woman and Makola? What does it mean?
No, basically what it means is that the way in the investor community view the nation is different. They are viewing this in a very positive light. Now, even as well as bilateral partners. So what it means is that if today we decide to go to the capital market to borrow money, we are likely to get a better rate as compared to the previous rate. So that is basically what it means. It doesn't mean that it's going to put money in your wallet. It doesn't mean that it's going to put money in your pocket. What it means is that if we should go out to borrow money to undertake capital-intensive projects, we are likely to get a better rate than the previously. So basically, that is what it means. Let me quickly add something to the debate. In fact, the reason which we have seen political parties always debating, I have done this, I want to take credit, is basically because the government have not done so much over the period. If we have done so much over the period, as a government, you don't need it to be debated because it will clearly show. As we sit today, I mean, you close your eyes, you are able to measure things that were done even under Kwame Nkrumah's regime, and it is feasible and it is there for everybody to see. So I'm just sending this thing out to our two major political parties, both NDC and DC, that there's so much work that ought to be done. Look, do you think we will sit here and debate if we have a work rate from Accra to Kumasi? We have one from Tema to Appiah. If we have industries working around that you have completed and people are getting jobs, there will be needless debating about these things, okay?
Great.
So they need to work very hard and improve the living standard of the citizens, and will not be wasting time debating on who has been graded high, because the citizens will really feel the impact of the development under whatever regime. So this is just a small advice to all.
Yeah, it's a very important point. It's a very, very profound point you've made there, and that's what leads me to Prince now. You know, it's all about people feeling it, all right? People feeling it. We talk about inflation coming down. We talk about the exchange rate coming down to 10 cities. And we, at Joy's Business Desk, been to the market. We've interacted with some of the spare part dealers. We've interacted with some of the industry people. And they say that they do not have the dollars. They can't get the dollars. They say they go to the banks and they are not getting the required dollars. So although you are putting numbers at their faces, you show the numbers at their faces and referencing numbers as the basis for the improvement of the economy, they say they are not feeling it in their pocket.
Let me quickly first react to some few falsehoods that the NPP did not threw in, especially with Boku. I think that can stabilize the country. What's happening in Boku should not be encouraged to fester like he's trying to. And I'm inclined to believe that that's part of their strategy to destabilize the country. In fact, especially in the face of the ammunition that they
we'll get into that.
But seriously.
Yeah, we'll get into that because the Defense Ministry mentioned. They're already looking into that. We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
You should get into.
Just trying to do that.
We'll get into that. But let's try and stay on course on this economic thing about people feeling it in their pocket, because fundamentally that's what it's all about. It's not just the numbers. It's about how it affects their life.
Yeah, I think that we shouldn't even go far. Just call your producers and the technical people and ask them 6 months down the line, are they feeling a little better in terms of the economy? Are they feeling it? I mean, you drove here. Are you buying fuel the same price that you bought just about 8 months ago? Did you buy?
Fuel has reduced. That's
food prices too, have they reduced? Yes, they have. In fact, everything has reduced significantly. Inflation and the NPP just bought a couple of months ago was upwards of 50% plus. In fact, Fitch confirms that. Now we're heading towards 15, and Fitch projects that 2026 we're going to 10.
15%.
Yeah, we're going to hit about 10.
It's a single digit.
Single digit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if the numbers are anything to go by, the numbers speak. Now, to the dollars out there, I think that it is very clear, and I'm saying this because the Bank of Ghana has indicated that it's going to put in bold and very strong measures to ensure that dollars do not just fly around as happened in the past.
Yeah, because the Bank of Ghana says they are putting into the economy at least some in excess of $2 billion.
Yes, but the fact
they're making interventions, and people are saying we can't see the dollars.
No, but you need to see dollars if you have to. Dollars should not be like Kojo and Ama walking on the streets.
But the people who need it said they're not getting it.
You've traveled outside the country, even just to South Africa. Are you able to trade in dollars in South Africa? Are you able to? Are you able to?
No, you won't.
And that's where we're getting to. So it means that you're confirming that the Bank of Ghana is actually working and the effect of its policies, interventions are manifesting. That's what you're saying to me. And I think that's the right path to go. And that's why people are getting convinced that this government is on the right path. We are not just going to do just anything to satisfy, people, but the right measures are going to be put in place so that the numbers will actually speak, investor confidence will come, and the dollars that will be investments that are coming in towards sectors that are productive will yield results.
Well, let me bring you in, Richard, now. Are you also concerned? Because one of the things that the concerns being raised is that the government is not spending, although they make reference to some 114 billion cedis that they've spent in terms of some other commitments that they have to pay. But things like the Women's Development Bank, it's been launched, but it's not been operationalized.
Please, before he comes in, it's been launched, but it's not been operationalized.
Yeah.
It was, and the promise was to establish.
Yeah.
Now, between establishment and the edifice coming up and it's, rolling out, their processes.
And that's not just
the board is in place and they're working.
I mean, you talk about we've not seen roads constructed, we've not seen hospitals built.
You wait, just tarry a little bit. You see the military will be out there 24 hours. The president has promised. And
But
so far, the president is delivering on his promises.
But I want to hear
the military will be out there.
that. I mean, they're saying you're not paying the contractors. You're not making the major commitments that you have to. You're just touching the surfaces, and you're taking credit for that.
You see, aeroplane. When aeroplane want to fly or take off in the sky, what does it do first? It taxis, isn't it? It will taxi to the runway, that will run, then eventually do what? It takes off. So when you inherit an economy that is in a complete dire situation, completely sinking into abyss, and the people realize that, look, the direction this NPP government is taking us, we are going to crash if we don't vote them out of power. Then we did. We voted them out. That's why we're all there championing change, that we need a change. The change has come. When change comes and you are a CEO who have been appointed to restructure an existing company, what do? Do you just go there and start spending money left, right, front, center? You don't do that. You go there to do a complete assessment of the situation. Look at the areas of key importance that you need to settle them immediately. Prepare the base. If you need to downsize, you downsize. If you need to cut money being paid here, you cut it. If you need to you take radical steps in order to reorganize, for you to gather that momentum that will catalyst you into the future that you are looking for.
I think government has gathered the momentum.
I am coming. So all the steps that this government is taking, I am still of the view that they are doing some expenditure, but maybe not necessarily into the productive sectors. But for instance, if they also claim they have paid teachers' allowance, they have paid nurses' allowance, we have released some about 3 billion cedis or 10 billion cedis to be paid to contractors. We have done this, we have done it. All these things constitute expenditure, isn't it? But the issue is that, are we spending into productive sectors that will be able to become the cash cow that will bring the revenue for us to plow into other subsectors of the economy? Maybe not. How much have we invested into SMS financing? How much have we put into revolutionarization? Because we want to industrialize agriculture. That means you need to revolutionize the entire process. How much have we invested into that space? How much have we invested into industries? How much have we invested into infrastructure? That's why government is also saying that they have a big push plan, and they're about to eject about 13.8 billion something into this big push plan, which is going to be towards what? Infrastructure. So the idea of you saying that government is not spending at all is absolutely wrong. But the only thing is that are they spending into productive sector, which for us, we still have the view that they are not spending in the productive sectors of the economy.
For instance, a policy like the Jumara policy, and Dennis, I'm going to come to you very shortly. A Jumara policy, for instance, government budgeted in excess of 300 million cedis. Understand, just about 35 million cedis has been released so far. And I mean, Feed Ghana project also, in excess of 1.5 billion cedis have been budgeted. And I mean, less than 10%.
But you see, if I were the finance minister, a new government, like I said, that inherited a debt portfolio as high as what NDC inherited from NPP. You cannot just go on a free-fall expenditure. So obviously, you must curtail some of your expenditure lines. But nevertheless, we are still of the view that, you see, Ghana is virtually an informal-driven economy. Most of the businesses in Ghana, they are SMEs. Okay, that's why I am still of the view that what is the revolving fund, what kind of capital investment has been done into SMEs empowerment, where the government can say that as we have taken over, we've been able to allocate 10 billion, 15 billion into empowering SMEs. Because when you empower SMEs and I have my small business and I have 2 people working for me and government capitalize me, inject more liquidity into my business and I'm able to expand it from one production line to another and I'm employing 2 more hands, are we not remedying the situation? We are remedying the situation. That's why we are still of the view that spend more on enhancing the SME for us to build an enterprise economy. That has been the position of movement for the productive sectors of the economy. That is the position of movement for change. That we need to have an enterprise economy where the economy is so fluid and liquid. But here lies the case. People don't even have money in their pocket. You see, you can say the inflation rate is good and all this, but people don't have the liquidity to spend. How do I go to market when I don't have money? Great. So what has that got to do with GDP?
Interesting. Let me bring Dennis in. Dennis, you've heard them. I hope we don't get into the Boko issue because hopefully we'll get some more time to get into it. I
promise not to go there.
Yeah, and Dennis, just this question. I want you to address this for me. You raised concerns about the government reneging on some of its promises. That's what the minority said. But today, we know that the first-time students, first-year students, over almost 100,000 of them, about 97,000 of them, have had their money paid to them back by government. Government is paying the nurses and training allowances. If you look at the money they've spent so far, almost 114 billion Ghana cedis, that is expenditure. You don't look at that and say government is not spending. And some are saying they are spending, but they are just being cautious about where they should spend. So the claim that they are not spending is unfounded. How do you respond to that?
I would break this conversation into 2. The reality and the contention on the ground. The reality is that the mid-year budget review is going to amend Act 1080. Act 1080 is the Fees and Charges Act. What that means for students across the country is that school fees, tertiary education fees is going to go up to 40%. The highest increase in school fees in the last 10 years. That is the reality. The reality is what you said in the studios, that when you go to the market, you don't get dollars. The NDC guy in the studio tries to gaslight you and all traders in this country that they don't need dollars. That's why they are not getting dollars. The people of Aboso are watching us today who need dollars to import. The people at Makola who need dollars to get things. Who you and your crew have spoken to and are complaining about the unavailability of dollar. You speak about everything going down. He says that in the studio. Cement has gone down, Abi. Tell me the construction labor that cement has gone down. Everything has gone down. Cement is selling at 120, 130 thereabout. These are the reality. The basket of reality is that school fees will go up by 40%. So even if you claim to spend, which I have the data here, we are in the 7th month, you have still not disbursed a single dime of the $51 million $51 million you budgeted for the Women's Development Bank for this year. This budget is not for the 4 years. So if you've crossed half and your expenditure is still lacking around zero release for National Coders Program for this year, then there is a problem. Now, what is the entire debate? The entire debate is that nobody is saying government does not deserve credit for any grading. No. Nobody is saying that. In fact, nobody can actually say that because it is the government. The debate has been the government's gaslighting, hypocritical, and peddling of falsehood to disconnect the reality of the grading, which is heavily connected to the debt restructuring, to the NPP's performance. You yourself fix the economists you put on the show, and everybody who is sane, reasonable, and conscionable admits, and he said it, the economists you put on the show said it, that the NPP deserves credit for the grading. The entire locus of this argument, and that is why we bring it and narrow it to the reality, is that the NPP is saying that you cannot complain and insult the NPP on the debt restructuring as the NDC did and want to take credit for it without giving credit to the NPP who did the debt restructuring, received all the bastardization for it. And when the time I have cooked the food, when it is ready to be eaten, I went through the fire. You insulted me for delaying. You insulted me for cooking the food through painstaking method. When it is ready, you come, you pull your spoon out, attempt to eat with lies and all of it, and say that you didn't cook it.
Yeah,
that has been the debate here. And now let me end here.
No, let me end here. You see, it's suggesting that the NPP now kind of believes in Fitch.
I'm coming to that.
I thought the NPP didn't like these grading agencies at all.
And that is just briefly. That is just briefly though.
I'm confused.
Let me end here.
Yeah, Dennis, before you end, listen to me briefly, before you end, and that's a very interesting point that I was coming to ask you about. The former President Nana Akufo-Addo in 2023 blasted Fitch. In fact, made a strong argument that Africa should consider creating its own credit ratings. In fact, the finance minister said, and I quote, "It's time for Africa to have its own credit rating agency." However, such major challenges such as a systematic bias and limited data are still a hindrance. In fact, we know the posture of the previous government when the ratings came and we went to CC and all of that. You were clearly not happy with Fitch. But today, it appears that you are a good friend of Fitch. And that's what people are finding
it's called hypocrisy.
A bit interesting. And someone is asking, is that not hypocritical?
You know what is hypocrisy? Hypocrisy is when you take the Fitch report and you decide to dwell on one part and leave the other part. The NPP has always said that Africa needs its own credit rating. That has been our position. And that remains our position. Who draws the Fitch argument? It is the NDC that brought the Fitch argument to Parliament. It is the finance minister who carried lots of documents to come and argue on Fitch. And we are saying that the hypocrisy is thinking when you want to take Fitch, dwell on Fitch, but say that Fitch citing the debt restructuring, NPP does not deserve the credit. Now let's narrow the real argument here and let's see who is hypocritical. The hypocrite is the one sitting in your studio who talks and wants to benefit out of Galamsey and then still cite Untumi when Appiah, Bandi have been indicted by his own government. That is the hypocrisy.
Yep.
So nobody is.
But to be fair, they have not been found guilty of engaging in that. They have.
Untumi has not been found guilty.
Yeah,
but
they have.
Allow him to sit in the studio. Hold on. Untumi has not been found guilty, but you allowed him to sit on the.
I mean, likewise for Untumi. Likewise for Untumi. Untumi. No, relax. Yeah, but let me just say this. And it's important we say this. To be fair,
you need to say for Untumi too.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That likewise for Untumi, he has not been found guilty of a Galamsey. Appiah has not been found guilty of Galamsey. So the names you are referencing, to be fair,
Untumi has.
Well,
Untumi has.
No court has found him guilty of that. No. But let's stay on the point. Let's stay on the point. Yeah, let's stay on the point.
Tell him to stop talking.
Yeah. Well, none of the individuals have been found guilty of Galamsey. So please, let's reference them.
Except Untumi.
He's not been found guilty. No court has found him guilty.
I use the word indicted. I I used the word indicted. You used the word Muntumi was doing the one say. And you did not correct him until I brought in Mustafa Bambi and Abanga of the NDC.
Dennis, land for me. Yeah, Dennis, land for me so that I can wrap up with the economist. Yeah.
Richard Suma and Prince in the studio sought to do just two things. One, repaint the picture of the unavailability of dollar, the lack of spending per the data of the NDC, the falsehood peddled by the Minister for Finance, citing erroneous figures in Parliament, and then finally, discredit the NPP for something they have bastardized the NPP for. What have we achieved in this debate, and what have we told the people of this country? One, everybody, including you in the studio, including your panel, everybody admits that dollar in weaker so. Even if you are
still hiding it.
Well, Dennis, thank you very much. We need to.
Let me land. At least he interjected. Let me land. It's not fair.
Dennis, it's okay. We need to wrap up this thing.
You need to let me land.
30 seconds. 30 seconds. Land. Your plane is 30 seconds.
And I'm saying that we've been able to show that indeed the dollar is not available. Two, we have said that it is also not fair to anybody to say that the fifth points they cited, the main points they cited, I'm throwing it out of the window and I'm jumping onto something that I am comfortable with. That is hypocrisy. And finally, Dennis, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis. You've made that point repeatedly. And guys, I'm sure you've been watching it. You've been sending us your messages. So guys, should we take some of the messages now? Great. WhatsApp messages, we understand some of them are here, but let me hear from Mr. Daniel briefly before we go. Mr. Daniel, you've heard them back and forth. I'm sure you've been sitting there smiling to the back and forth there. But progressively though, what can we do to sustain these gains that we have made as far as the ratings is concerned? What do we need to do to sustain it and even improve, possibly get to an A rating? Hello, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel seemed to have frozen, but, great. Well, let me just okay, great. I understand I should get your final remarks so that we can wrap up. We seem to have lost Mr. Daniel. I wanted to hear from him before we wrap up the segment, but Mr. Suma, your final remarks on this. You've been very, very emphatic that we need to invest in the productive sectors of the economy. What will be your final messages in that regard? Well,
like I sincerely submitted earlier, that you see, we have been doing some recurrent expenditures as a country, and we are plowing a lot of money into these sectors, but they are not productive sectors of the country's economy. And our export-driven agenda should be a topmost priority. And how to amalgamate all the small businesses, indigenous Ghanaian-owned businesses, capitalize them. You see, countries make cautious and deliberate effort to grow their countries. China had a deliberate agenda that they are going to combat poverty and reduce poverty to the minimum barest level. And they did so. Now in China, most people are within the middle bracket and above. But in Ghana, the vast majority of the citizens are still within the poverty bracket. And we are not making any effort. We only like to be touting figures, patting ourselves on the shoulder, praising ourselves. We are the best. We are doing well. We are doing this. But at the end of the day, bread and butter issues are still issues that are facing people day and night. Great. So my last point on this issue is that NPP as a government or as a previous government, they had 8 good years. So if you have 8 years, within 8 years, you're supposed to have put us on a solid pedestal. We are standing on a cliff. So when you said that the Eswa Mahama government is corrupt, incompetent, we gave you the power because we assumed that they were on a cliff. So
they shouldn't be speaking, but the government needs to be held accountable. Your job
then was supposed to gravitate us to become a country that is on iron feet.
But they've been voted out. They are now in opposition.
You don't have 8 years. 8 years, dilly-dally, turn around, dance around, other chiefs around.
They say they are doing their job, holding the government feet to the fire.
Hubris activities around, turn around to say say that some little DDP you did should be credited to you.
Prince, let me hear from you finally, then we'll wrap up. And then hopefully we can take some few messages before we wrap up. Finally from you, in 1 minute.
I hope the NPP guy will be putting his efforts towards their upcoming election of the biggest hypocrite in their party. And hopefully they will learn from the NDC. In fact, that NNC is doing all that the NPP shouldn't have done, and the things that it should be teaching the NPP maybe 30 years down the line if they get opportunity to do. Prudence is the name of the game. The mismanaged economy was mostly because of the borrowing, the binge borrowing that the NPP went on. By this time last year, they would have gone to Franklin Templeton, 2.2 billion, just to, give data bank money to, as it were, enjoy, and so on and so forth. I think that the NDC is doing the right things, and we are going to ensure that agriculture becomes the backbone of our economy. Agribusiness is another very important part, but I think also that the spending that people are expecting will be happening inside the country to open up the country. Look, if the expenditure on the roads that the military are going to construct starts, if the water, that's the Volta Lake transport thing happens, and a few other things kick in. I'm sure, is it Dennis, right?
Yeah, Dennis.
I don't think he would ever want to represent the NPP.
Well, great. Well, let's get some messages so that we can wrap up. This one says, good morning, Honorable Kuma. MPP is accusing NDC and vice versa. We lost credibility as Ghanaians. If MPP is wrong, they end... well, great. Well, I beg your pardon. Well, so someone, good morning. City appreciation is bad news to the poor because the market women refuse to reduce the prices. The importers reduce wholesale prices, but market women are very, very selfish. They're even increasing prices. We don't love ourselves. Our love for Jesus in this country is fake. My goodness. Well, interesting.
Yeah, it's a fact.
Yeah, interesting. Some more comment coming here. It said, President Mahama played politics with everything while in opposition. Now look at what is happening in Boko. He said he will resolve the conflict when he comes to power, but 7 months into his presidency, the situation has deteriorated badly. Why don't you go there yourself and restore peace, he asks. Aren't they your brothers and sisters anymore? That's Odeniho Kweku Appiah. And more messages. This one says, tell the movement for change, that if the NPP government was a failure, which his boss was a part, then he should put his head in
what
shame.
I'm talking about.
They are the most hypocritical.
If the captain is running away, why should the midfielder be blamed?
I always describe them as PhD guys.
If the captain of the team is running away from responsibility, why should the one playing midfield should be
This one said, question is, who even did the valuation in the first place, and how are we to track this wobbly process you mentioned? During the 2024 election, do you remember this statement? Anytime NDC is in power, there is peace in Boko. A lot of Boko conversations still here. Let's possibly take a few more and we'll be done. They said someone don't want to read someone's message and they are unhappy about it. I'm not sure. We'll read your message. But he says, brothers, don't worry about the noise from the micro minority led by Afenyo Markin. They are just confused and want the citizens to hear the micro voices concerning the latest Fitch upgrade. That's Dachi from Ejumako Esan there. Well, this one says, Alhaji Hamza from Pig Farm. Good morning, my brother. I don't blame the NPP as a political party because it is clear they are becoming irrelevant in this country and seems to be repeating the point by Richard. He said they should give us a break. We have a country to govern. Well, He said Dennis should be careful. And again, another person said the NPP man must be told that Ghanaians are not listening to their argument. Gasti says the NDC always take credit for positive progress they know nothing about. President Mahama is, goodness, of course, he's not a robot. Let's not get too, it's early morning. Today is Wednesday. It's a good Wednesday. Don't do that. Good morning, host. I feel sad to listen to the NPP communicator. Just listen to the NPP man feeling proud of killing people because of the GDP. The DP happened because of the mismanagement of the Nado and Bawumia government. Why are they praising themselves for doing that? Musa Abatwa from Asawasi says, I can see Dennis is struggling to make a point, but respectfully, it's not making any sense to me. He said NPP is suffering from credibility crisis. That's another message there. He said, someone says, I'm struggling to get dollars for business transactions. Just yesterday, I needed $30,000 to transfer to my partner in China, but none of the 7 banks I visited had any. Likely, a banker contacted an aboki who provided $40,000 at 13.89 Ghana cedis per dollar. It's ironic that when the dollar was 15 cedis last year, dollars were readily available. Can someone please convey to the NDC man that
This payment should have been paid in the Chinese yuan, not in dollars.
He said, what did the NDC promise Ghanaians in opposition? And what are they doing now? As for movements for change, Chada is even more popular than them.
Forget about it.
Interesting.
Don't know what you are talking about.
Yeah.
Well,
so we understand the banks were not giving out money unless you have visa, and in fact they are very stringent requirement before you get the dollars. So you're not getting dollars. It's either you are not meeting those requirements or something else. But I think if you need $30,000, obviously you will probably have gotten it.